It's time for Kolchak to tell us another story he can't print.
Remember the penny arcades that used to be so much fun when you were a kid? For a handful of coins, you could test your strength, your skill at a pinball machine. Those arcades were a lot of things to a lot of kids. But there was one particular arcade that represented something special for me. It was here that began one of the most terrifying experiences of my life.
There were no such things in my town, but there were plenty of restaurants, bowling alleys, and such that had pinball machines. My nephew and I aspired to be pinball wizards long before the song appeared, but our success was, limited. Even so, we had a lot of fun being wannabes. This particular arcade doesn't make its money off games, though. This is the place where you can get all the illegal mind-altering substances your little heart desires, for a price. And where illegal drug dealing is happening, stuff like this is usually included.
Frankie Markov, convicted arsonist, was cleaned up.
We watch Frankie's funeral procession go down the street, and then we see this guy.
Ryder Bond, musical prodigy at 14, internationally respected conductor at 40, a gifted man with a nearly fatal devotion to punctuality.
He's in a Rolls Royce with a driver, so you know he's way more important than Frankie. I told you he's important. The whole world stops for him when he cuts off another car.
September 7th, 6:40 p.m. The Lakeshore apartment of George Mason, first violinist and concertmaster of the Great Lake Symphony. Mr. Mason was trying for his customary pre-concert nap.
Whoa, I think we have a new supervillain on our hands, and we may have a witness to the crime.
No, it's all right. Oh, Randolph. No, Randolph.
Whoa, again, that was our conductor, but he's still alive. How is he a ghost? And Randolph can tell he's still there, even though Ms. Sherman can't. Kolchak hears the story on the police radio and goes to check it out. When he sees the bed, he'd like to hear a reasonable explanation. Fortunately, today's requisite obnoxious cop, Sergeant Mayer, has one.
What happened to Mason here?
Isn't it obvious? The guy was smoking in bed.
I didn't see any ashtray.
That's his problem.
As a rule, when someone does that, the whole place goes up in a matter of minutes. Why did this fire only burn Mason and not everything else? The sergeant isn't interested in answering. He needs to question Ms. Sherman about what she saw, and Kolchak isn't invited.
Reading my arm now. That's police brutality. Wait a minute.
You said you saw somebody leave this apartment.
Not to be dissuaded, he waits near the elevator in the hall until Ms. Sherman comes along. This time, Turner is otherwise occupied. Kolchak is already on the lady's good side because before Mayer had him thrown out, he was oohing and ahhing over Randolph. Fawning over someone's dog is one of the quickest ways to gain their confidence, especially if the dog likes you. If my dog doesn't like someone, I keep them far from me. I trust his opinion of people a lot more than I trust my own.
Well, he certainly takes a dim view of you.
Well, he's a little dim-witted anyway. We disagree about a lot of things. You see, he hates dogs, and I just adore the little tyke.
I think that's the first time I've heard someone use the word tyke since I was one myself. By 1974, it had already fallen out of use, but I suspect Kolchak is using some older terminology like that because he figures it'll connect with a little old lady. She explains that anybody who loves the symphony as much as she does would have recognized Ryder Bond. There's just one problem. When this happened, he was at the concert hall rehearsing. Hey, nobody said what he was rehearsing. Either way, he's got at least one witness, but they'll need a translator. He says she only speaks French.
Yes?
Call Kolchak, INS. Could I have a moment of your time, Mr. Bond? George Mason, sir, is dead.
What did you say? You're lying. I don't believe you. Philip!
No, unfortunately, it's true, sir. He was found in his apartment, burned to death.
Philip is his gopher, and he's about half the size of Kolchak. This guy thinks Philip is going to throw our reporter out. Philip is not interested, thank you. He has more urgent things on his mind.
Is everything all right, Mr.
No!
The phone message sounded urgent.
What phone message?
The one I gave you in the orchestra pit 15 minutes ago.
Well, that's impossible. I've been in this dressing room for 2 hours.
Did anybody see you give Mr. Bond that message?
Yes, the entire orchestra.
Really?
Bond has no idea what Philip is talking about. There seem to be two of him running around. Sergeant Mayer comes in, which is Kolchak's cue to go out.
Page 1? Oh, Carl, come on. I need that story. Our subscribers are waiting. Now, what are you daydreaming about?
You know, that bed that George Mason died in was only charred with the outline of a man on it. That whole apartment should have gone up in flames. It's very puzzling.
Well, be puzzled on your own time. I need that story.
Kolchak is having a hard time getting into a story about homeowner scams when there's a mysterious murder just begging to be investigated.
Well, you'd feel a lot differently if you had your own home, and you were made promises, and you had to sign blank contracts, and you wound up with half-finished work.
You got taken. Well, what is it? Storm windows, roofing, aluminum siding, what?
Fumigating.
Fumigating!
When our kids were little, we lived in this itty-bitty town in northwestern Wyoming, and we bought a house that, had a reputation. The guy we bought it from had basically been run out of town because he was always scamming someone, and he built most of this place himself. As one person told me, he had a fool for a builder. There was not a square corner in the place. The stairs had a slight angle that qualified as a calf workout. The list goes on and on. Anyway, this place had vinyl siding because our brilliant builder got a great deal. First thing that happened, one of his kids was playing with a toy bow and arrow, and the little wooden blunt arrow went right through the siding. At least Tony doesn't have to deal with a permanent hole in his place. But that's kind of why the story is important to him.
But Ryder Bond is on a witness statement down at headquarters. He was seen leaving Mason's apartment.
If we have a story connected with Bond, remember, I have a musical background. I play the French horn.
Yeah, well, I would have guessed that.
Doggone it, Kolchak, now you're making me defend Uptight. Before you make those derisive comments, let's see you play a French horn. It's the hardest of the brass instruments to play because it's as sensitive as a transphobe's feelings. Unlike all the other instruments, it's also played left-handed. Its sound is naturally in a fairly high register, and playing it in a lower range takes multiplied years of practice. A French horn player who can play in that range can pretty well write their own ticket. That's how rare they are. I doubt Updike played it well, but if he made the effort and got anywhere with it, he gets a little sliver of my respect.
September 8th, Patterson Towers Apartments. Miss Felicia Porter, Sorbonne graduate and international music groupie, stepped out to improve her tan. The sun that day was hot, but not hot enough to cause what eventually happened.
There's no need to show it. She's incinerated exactly like Mason was. And the padded chaise lounge she was lying on is charred where she was laying, but no more.
Was there ever any talk in the building about Miss Porter, like excessive drinking, anything like that?
You police always think the worst of people. I never heard anything like that.
It's just that she did smoke. And it is possible when she dropped the match in the chaise, she could have been too drunk to get up when the fire started.
And that's why it only burned her and not the chair. The chair wasn't soaked with alcohol like she was. Get real, Sergeant. The girl thought she saw a man standing nearby, but it was just a glimpse out of the corner of her eye and he was gone. She's not even sure he was really there.
What'd you look like?
It was an optical illusion. I don't know.
All right, Kolchak. You want to report? Report. You want to do police work? Apply to the academy.
Was he about 40, handsome, had a beard, distinguished looking?
Yes, I guess he might have been.
We saw our victim getting flashes of Mr. Bond right before she burst into flames, but there's no way for anybody inside the story to know that.
All right, that's it. Harmel, Mr. Kolchak is going downstairs. Help him.
I got every right to be here.
But not to interfere with police work.
He's not interfering. He's doing the police work that you're afraid to do because of the political ramifications of accusing a major figure like Ryder Bond. We've only seen Philip Carey one other time on the channel, but his role was memorable. You might recognize Larry, the race car driver who was pushing Joyce into a quickie wedding on the Betty White show. His 6'4" height and linebacker build made him perfect for roles like that one. And this one.
Well, why didn't the entire cushion go up in flames? Why didn't it burn? The only thing that's burned is where the body was touching.
If we think there's any reason to worry about that, We'll ask the arson squad.
Well, start worrying. There's reason.
Harmel, get him out of here.
I think another issue with this show is the constant stream of stereotypes, especially when it comes to lead police investigators like this. Kolchak has been right every time when he suggested there's something supernatural going on. It's kind of the basis of the show. And not one cop has been willing to consider such possibilities, just like Mayer here. But as Sir Arthur Conan Doyle told us, when all other possibilities are eliminated, the remaining one, however unlikely, must be the truth. I guess Mayer never read Sherlock Holmes.
You're a 20-year veteran, Kolchak. Now, what is the matter with your head?
It's a smear.
You're practically accusing a man of murder. Ryder Bond, almost a god with some of the wealthiest, most powerful people in Chicago.
God, I didn't think about that. Maybe he's starting those fires by hurling thunderbolts.
The only reason Tony even knows what Carl is writing is because Updike snitched. He's standing there repeating everything Tony says. When my youngest, Fauna Joy, was about 4 or 5, anytime we got after one of the other girls for something, she was right there saying, "I didn't do that, I was good." For over a year, we called her Kaya, spelled C-Y-A, which stands for Cover Your Anatomy. Updike never got past 4 years old, I guess. Kolchak doesn't have to sit here and be insulted. He can do that anywhere. He's off to see a friend in the arson department.
Mr. Cardinale, what would it take to completely burn up a human body in, say, 10, 15 seconds?
I suppose couple thousand degrees.
He doesn't seem especially put off by the question. Makes you wonder what kind of stuff he's seen.
Is there a substance that a person could get their hands on that could completely burn up a human being in that length of time that quickly?
Well, the Army has a few things that could set fire to the ice in your highball.
David Doyle came from 4 generations of lawyers and breezed through the law school entrance exam himself. But his heart wasn't in it. He had gotten a taste of acting and the bug bit him hard. He abandoned the family tradition and became a successful character actor. His slice of immortality came with the creation of everybody's favorite eye candy program, Charlie's Angels. As Bosley, Charlie's point man, he was the one constant in the show. The angels came and went, but Bosley was always there. He was the only one who appeared in all 110 episodes. Most people who watched the show wouldn't be able to name all the angels he dealt with over those several seasons, but everybody who saw it even once knows who Bosley is. Even though I know a person who used to consistently mispronounce it Bonzo, and not on purpose.
If, like you say, the body is burnt, but the surroundings are not, either somebody does have some kind of super hotfoot juice or something's happening that I don't know about. And I would like to know about that.
Yeah, so would Kolchak. That's why he's asking you. You're the fire guy. If you don't know, there's no way he'll be able to let go of this until he solves the mystery. It's time to talk with Mr. Bond again.
I'd come to confront Mr. Bond because no one else seemed to want to. He was slated to give a matinee concert, but was now unaccountably making an unscheduled appearance in the car of Philip Randolph Rourke, treasurer and business manager of the Great Lakes Symphony Association.
He follows the car until he gets hung up at a stoplight. When he finally catches up, he may wish he hadn't. Kolchak says, "Hurry up, you guys, there's 2 people in there." But he's wrong, there's only 1 people, and he's burned to a crisp just like the others. Ryder Bond is nowhere to be seen. In fact, he's back at the Symphony Hall rehearsing as usual, and he's been there all afternoon. That night, Kolchak appears at his door. Let's see if I can get this past the copyright bots.
Well, obviously you've got every right to slam the door in my face. But there are some questions that nobody seems to want to answer, or even ask. First, let me say how sorry I am about Miss Porter. It's a tragedy. It's a terrible, terrible tragedy. I'm sure that words can't really express the grief that you must feel. Yes. Well, I'm glad to see that you are maintaining your equanimity. Last time we met, you seemed very upset, with even less...
A quick search of the apartment reveals that Mr. Bond is no longer on the premises, assuming he was ever there. Whoever is here, I don't think they like you. Time to leave.
The academicians at the university smiled tolerantly when I told them my problems. They said perhaps I thought I had seen a doppelganger, the destructive ghost of someone dead who takes on the appearance of one who is alive. Ryder Bond, in this case.
I'm a little surprised they told him that in plain English. Your average university academician likes to dazzle people with their command of scholarese. For those who don't know, scholarese is a dialect that consists entirely of multiverbal circumlocutions and polysyllabic sentence units. I speak it fluently, but only to other academicians because they often have trouble deciphering plain English. But now that he has a name for this thing, he can go find someone who knows how to help him deal with it.
Yes, you should definitely redo the dining room, but not in gold, in blue. And you should stay with traditional furniture.
It's amazing what a change of hair and makeup can do, isn't it? How many of us recognize Bertha Fly, the unscrupulous TV personality who caused so much trouble for the little people in Land of the Giants? Aside from that, we've only seen Madeline Rue one other time in Captain Nice. She started doing character roles in 1958 and kept doing them until 1997 when a battle with multiple sclerosis forced her to retire. Perhaps her best-known role is Lieutenant Maria MacGyver's, the historian who left the Enterprise to go be with Khan. Today, she's a gypsy fortune-teller.
However, should your path cross that of a lying reporter, don't tell him anything, particularly about any robberies you may have seen. He will quote you, and then mysteriously, police will arrive at your door.
This is off to a good start. After the people leave, Kolchak starts protesting that he told his editor to leave that part out, but the guy put it in anyway. It's not Kolchak's fault. It never is, and I suspect she knows that.
I think I'm tangled up with a ghost. I think that the ghost is trying to kill me. And from what I've read, I understand, well, I think a little laugh. I think it's a doppelganger.
Oh, I can't help it. I'm sorry. It's funny.
No, it's serious. I'm really serious.
Okay, she's a professional gypsy, not a biological one. And the word gypsy is profanity to the Romany people anyway, so quit saying it. Don't you have any couth at all?
Well, it's a malicious and lost spirit of a dead person who's trying to wear down a living human being and take over his body. Someone he envies, and what spirit would envy you?
Even Kolchak has to admit that's a valid question, but he says, it's not me. It's someone else, someone a bit more enviable.
Oh, so you started nosing around and now it wants to kill you.
Yeah, well, that's what I want to find out. Yeah, is that true? I mean, is it possible?
Well, you know, Kolchak, I have a friend. He's a doctor.
Yeah?
And Lou's always complaining because his friends want free advice. Gypsies have the same problem.
Even fake gypsies have to eat, so pay up.
You haven't been sleeping, have you?
No, I've been too terrified. So what they say in the books is true, huh?
Well, the spirit can only take final control of your friend's body when he goes to sleep.
And it'll also kill Carl the moment he falls asleep. She doesn't know how to get rid of it. She has to ask her grandmother.
Well, my grandmother's living in a nursing home in Winnetka, and when she starts talking, she never lets go. Listen, I'll have to hear about her bunions and her stomach and her
Maria,
back
will you
trouble
just go up and ask her? Go up and find out, will you? I'll come back.
All right. For $200.
$200? Maria, all I've got is $5 for dinner.
It's just terrible to be broke and superstitious at the same time.
To put that in perspective, it's a little over $1,200 today. She's price gouging and getting away with it. He'll get the money somehow, just please get him some answers. The whole doppelganger idea has kind of a weird history. German author Jean Paul coined the term in 1796 for one of his novels. He explained it as the name for people who see themselves. The idea of a spirit double that looks just like a person goes clear back to ancient Egypt, but he was talking about regular people who look alike. Other authors picked up the term and used it for things like these spirit doubles, and an entire mythology was born. Several famous people claim to have seen doppelgangers. The one that caught my eye was John Donne. In 1612, he was in Paris while his pregnant wife was back home in England. When she gave birth, the little girl was stillborn. That night, according to a friend's account of what Donne told him, he saw a vision of his wife there in his room, pacing back and forth and holding a dead baby. He said she made eye contact with him and then disappeared. Other prominent people claim to have seen similar things, including poets Shelley and Goethe. Did they really see something? I'm not about to try and answer. Considering some of the things I've experienced myself, I'm not about to rule out anything. Ryder Bond is at the piano in the hall doing something with a piece of music.
Is that you again? Why do you keep disappearing? Who are you?
Kolchak, who are you expecting?
I'm never quite sure anymore. I seem to have developed a rather exotic form of schizophrenia. I keep seeing myself.
Yeah, Kolchak can explain that. He tells him about the doppelganger.
I prefer that to madness. Now, how do I get it over with?
It's very simple. You just simply go to sleep. I'm very serious. It's going to take over your body and soul the moment you fall asleep.
Here's a little bit of advice. You don't want that. He's a lousy conductor.
And you're doing this all for a newspaper story?
Well, partly. I'm really more interested in saving my own skin. I have a feeling that doppelganger is hanging around here and knows that I'm helping him.
Oh, really?
Really?
I think he heard me call him a lousy conductor.
Finally, Bond realized I was telling the truth and agreed to let me take him to a place where he could sleep in safety. On the way there, we went over his every move the day the doppelganger killed Mason. Bond remembered cutting through the funeral procession on the way to rehearsal. It was there the spirit latched onto him. Going north on Lakeshore Drive takes you to only one cemetery. Possibly I could find out who was buried there that day.
They're at a church because, according to Maria, sacred ground is a place where they can sleep without the spirit being able to bother them. The cemetery is because she said to get rid of the thing, you have to find out who he is, produce his mortal remains, and in a total departure from everything we learned from Supernatural, you don't burn the remains. You confront the ghost with them and force him to go back into them. What he's supposed to do once he's in his dead body is his problem, not ours, I guess.
What are you doing? I have been slaving over those drawers, trying to get them in some systematic order.
Who told you to?
What are you looking for?
Markov.
Markov? What?
Frankie Markov. He was listed as having been buried by the Old Park Cemetery about the 3rd of this month, along with a few other bodies.
D for death, O for obituary.
For obituaries. Don't you read the teletype uptight?
Silly us, rather than being under something weird like his name, it's under A for arsonists. Duh.
Frankie was a good provider, but you couldn't say he was exactly burning with ambition.
Well, do you know what your husband did for a living, Mrs. Markov?
He never said. Frankie was what they call a private person. I never really got to know him too well.
How long were you married to him?
6 years. Well, Frankie did night work, and I saw him mostly when he was lying in bed.
How can you be married to someone for 6 years and know so little about them? I suppose it's easy if you try hard enough. Some people just want to live in blissful ignorance. Then again, I get the feeling that if he had told her he was a professional arsonist, she'd probably think he designed buildings.
Well, did he have any interest that you know of?
One.
His son.
And his son appears to be going into the family business. Did Frankie teach him to play with fire, or is it genetic? No, his big love was music, especially orchestral music.
A couple of times at night, when he was playing his records real loud, I looked in and saw him standing in the room waving a stick in the air like he was leading a band.
I'm sure the phrase conducting an orchestra is way too complex for her, so we'll just go with it and call it leading a band. Whatever we call it, he was a frustrated conductor who liked to imagine himself with the baton. Been there, done that. My goal when I was studying music in college was to be a conductor. It never happened, as you can see, but I do love the music, and every so often when something is playing, you can catch me going like this. Frankie seems to have carried that whole thing to an unhealthy level. I couldn't find that kid's name, but I think I foresee a bright acting future for him. As much as he conveyed without a single word, he has real possibilities. Someone out there knows who he is, so have at it in the comments. Please, I really want to know. Kolchak goes to the arcade and finds the exact spot where Frankie died. He says that'll be the last thing Frankie's ghost remembers. Before that will be a total blank. I'm not sure he wants to remember any of it. I'd suggest calling the police and telling them you're being stalked, but yeah.
I would be more than happy to loan you some money, Mr. Kolchak. No questions asked.
I need it today. Otherwise, some gypsy gentlemen are going to use my kidneys as cattle drums.
Maria told him if he didn't pay up, her brother who owns a karate studio would put a gypsy curse on him. The very tangible kind of curse that leaves you in traction.
Alcohol or gambling. You know, my cousin Ernest could be of a great help and comfort.
Thank you, Monique, but I don't need the services of a rabbi. I bought some information and I have to pay for it. Can you take this to Miss Maria Hargrove at the Little Romany Tea Room for me?
Updike has caffeine pills somewhere, and Kolchak needs them. He's been up for 52 hours.
Run! Upper right-hand drawer.
Upper right hand. Oh, yes.
Kolchak! I've never seen you like this before. Now, pick him up. What's the matter? You sick?
Shall we call a doctor?
I've been marked for death by the doppelganger. Unless I can get the ghost back into the body, I'm going to burn up.
Well, that clears it up. They're trying to get him to lie down and sleep, but a call from the priest at the church precludes that from happening.
Ryder, listen to me carefully. I'm your doctor. Now, we've been through difficult things before, but we've done them together. By being reasonable, by listening to reason. You are near complete physical exhaustion. You've been hallucinating.
Well, then we're both having the same hallucinations. You're not taking him anywhere. He doesn't want to go.
This doctor doesn't believe in the supernatural, so of course it's all hallucination. These people who think they know it all are really irritating to those of us who actually do know it all. Obviously, I misspoke. I meant those unlike us who actually do know it all.
Mr. Bond is not well. If you try to keep him here, you could be in legal jeopardy.
You got a warrant for his arrest?
No.
Did he create any kind of a crime?
No.
You know what they're going to do? They take you out of here, they're going to put you in a hospital. Then you know the first thing they're going to do? They're going to give you a sedative. A sedative, you know what that means? That's just what he's waiting for.
Let's hear the doctor explain what legal trouble he could be in. That should be educational.
How much stake?
Sergeant, can't you do something?
I'm sorry, Doctor. If he doesn't want to go, there's nothing we can do.
Very well. I'll be available when you've thought this out, Ryder.
Let's go.
Turn around. Don't look at it anymore. Don't look at it. Don't look at it. Just lie down and go to sleep.
Since this is a safe place and the doppelganger can't get in, I suggest Kolchak take his own advice. He can't manage much more than a little cat nap, but once night falls, it doesn't matter. There's work to be done.
Grave robbery and body snatching are still punishable crimes in Chicago, so I had to do it by myself. Get an order to exhume Markov from the coroner's office? Not with what I had in mind.
Your Honor, we respectfully request that Mr. Markov's body be exhumed so that we can force his spirit to return to it and stop being Ryder Bond's doppelganger. I'm sure any judge would jump at the chance to issue that order. He hauls the body to the arcade and places it in the spot where Frankie was murdered.
Listen to me. This is your body here. You are dead. You are not Ryder Bond. You will never be Ryder Bond.
The spirit isn't buying it.
Return to your own body. Leave Ryder Bond alone. Return to your body.
Ryder Bond definitely needs the beard. Just the mustache won't do it.
Return to your body, Markov. And rest in peace forevermore.
I think Kolchak did the same thing to Frankie that Frankie was doing to Bond. He kept wearing him down until he finally gave in.
No, wait a minute. I got nothing to do with that in there. Believe me, it had nothing to do with it.
Maybe instead of hassling him, you should be calling someone to put the fire out. Never mind. I forgot that a lot of those illegal chemicals are extremely flammable. In the end, the city gave Kolchak a medal for cleaning up a major drug den.
My only worry now is to find Tony Vincenzo to try to raise bail. They've got me hooked on some stupid arson charge. But it's Tony's night to play cards, and I don't know where he is. So I think I'll just spend a nice good night's sleep in the slammer.
If it has a stationary horizontal surface big enough to hold him, he'll take it. He wasn't so easy to please the next morning when Vincenzo called the jail and told him to keep him. We watch Frankie's funeral procession. Has one. That was terrible. Goes up in the manner of minutes. Matter. Major figure like. Oh, don't lose the line. Much more than a little cat nap.